Count on Local 3 News for the local stories that affect your life.
We are going into a very happy, celebratory time of year for most of you, I hope, but the truth is there are a lot of people out there, perhaps you know some, for whom this is a very difficult, challenging time of year, and very often that shows itself with substance abuse. So we're happy this morning to have Revida Recovery back on the show with us. This is Melissa Black, Cassidy Kemp. Good to see you both.
Good to see you again.
And I don't mean to suggest that this is the only time of year that this is a flare-up for people, but if you're already struggling, this kind of adds insult to injury for a lot of folks.
Oh, very much so. I mean, with the holidays, there's already stress and anxiety as a whole, let alone add a recovery on top of that.
So let's start first, Cassidy, with your message of there should not be a stigma associated with this conversation.
And that's why we're here. We're doing something that's like a Mythbusters of sorts. So we're here to discuss different myths that a lot of people have around MAT programs, which are medication-assisted treatment programs. So we want to break down those, kind of go over why people might think that and what we can do to help that.
Okay, before we bust the myths, I can't talk this morning, let's talk about what that looks like then, medication-assisted treatments. What that means is you're not taking everything away, you're replacing essentially one for another?
Yeah.
Is that right? So you're the care coordinator there,
yes,
Melissa. So what does this mean exactly?
So the medically assisted treatment is just a combination of medication combined with therapies like group therapies, individual therapies. Some do outside meetings, but it's for those that have had problems with opiates. So the buprenorphine will help with cravings, withdrawal symptoms.
Because what you're doing, I guess, Cassidy, is you're kind of retraining the brain.
Yes.
How to not need what it believes it needs, and for a while does need, right? You can't just cold turkey it.
Yes, and that's what happens when you have an opiate use disorder, is we're taking one of the medications, buprenorphine, naloxone, and to kind of get scientific with it, it helps bind to those receptors in your brain to help with the cravings and with withdrawals as well.
Okay, so let's start busting some myths.
Let's do it.
Okay, is that one of the myths is that you think you're going to replace one essentially addiction for another.
Yep. And that's not the case. So it's yes, you're taking another medication, and buprenorphine is an opiate, yes. But with the naloxone, what it does is it's a ceiling effect for it. So you can't abuse it essentially. And then I like to coordinate it with, well, if you're taking blood pressure medicine, you're taking that daily as well. Why is this any different?
You have evidence-based treatment on there. So does that mean that this has been studied long enough to have data behind it?
Oh yes, very much so. Even with these medication-assisted treatment programs that are in place, 50% of mortality rates have decreased because of these programs as well.
50% mortality rate has decreased.
Yep, so it's associated with these MAT programs.
Is part of that because it's essentially doable for folks, they stick with it?
Yes, ma'am. So they're sticking with it. That's going. It's decreasing relapse essentially. So a lot of times, what happens with people going cold turkey is you're going to have those cravings and those withdrawals. So what happens when you have this medication that's assisting with decreasing those symptoms, you're more likely to stay on a recovery path. And then with that as well, if you get to the point, you can also taper off medication if you wish.
Okay, myth 2 is that the cost is going to be insurmountable.
Not the case.
No, because most insurances now do cover the treatment, and with the Affordable Care Act, they're required to treat mental illness, behavioral issues, including the substance abuse. And also Revida has a scholarship program that is available to those who qualify for it.
Okay, myth 3, once you start down the medication assistance treatment, people think that they're going to be on that new medication permanently. Is that the idea?
Not necessarily. Everyone's recovery process looks different. So you can be on it for a couple months, or you might be on it for years. That is the unfortunate part that comes with an opiate use disorder, is because it is abuse, it can rewire your brain, as I mentioned, and so people can be on it for a long time. However, there are things in place to help taper off medication. That's another reason why we couple it with counseling too, so that way we can go through the mental side as well.
Let's talk about the kind of hyper-personalization of it, because you are the care coordinator, so y'all are a outpatient facility. Everybody who comes to you, though, gets his or her own personalized care plan?
Right, because even each person has a different story, like how they got to that point. Everybody is different. Like the main symptom is the same, but everybody's story is different. Therefore, their recovery is going to be different. Their treatment is going to be different. So we do assessments when they come in, so each person will have an individualized plan.
We've talked once before, Cassidy, and I'm trying to think back, but y'all are kind of new in a way to the Chattanooga area, but you've got that footprint all across the Southeast. You're heavily involved in the North Carolina area, so Helene impacted you greatly,
yes,
right?
So our Greenville, Morristown, and Johnson City locations were heavily impacted. A lot of homes, as you've seen probably across videos on social media, have been taken away. Clothing, food, so we've done a lot in that side of things to try to help patients up in that area, as well as with that grant opportunity that we do have in place, we're trying to make sure that their recovery, there's no interruption in that. So that's helping out a lot of patients with that too.
So that same ability you have to kind of offset costs for folks here, you're making sure you provide that for those people who've lost everything.
Yes.
If people are watching this morning and they want to get in touch with you, can they do that directly? Do they have to go through a physician's office?
Nope, they can do it directly. They can call our phone number. We do have an intake team as well, so they can get them set up on the schedule and we can start the process from there.
There's your contact information. Then it's Revida Recovery in Hickson, 243-3342, and then online, revidarecovery.com. Thank you both.
Awesome, thank you.
A simple step can lead to unexpected consequences. Navigating the aftermath of a slip or fall isn't straightforward. If you've been injured on someone else's property, contact Watermark Keith. It's more to us. It's personal.